It was a Japan Airlines cargo flight piloted by Captain Kenju Terauchi. This is the sketch Terauchi drew of what he says he saw at his window that night. And this Japanese television graphic is based on his description.
This is just a small spacesuit. We can see a big plane. This one is size is carrier, so motherships.
Bigger than an aircraft carrier, Terauchi claimed when he drew this sketch showing the relative size of his jumbo jet. Terauchi's route was over Alaska to Anchorage. He says the UFOs stayed with him 40 minutes and then disappeared. Today, the FAA released tapes of the crew's conversation with controllers.
Japan Air 1628, sir, if you're able to identify the type of aircraft.
We cannot identify the type. Still coming like a formation. It's quite a big.
But Terauchi's crewmates were not sure they'd seen a UFO, and other planes sent to look saw nothing unusual. The FAA agrees. Today, the agency concluded a 3-month investigation, saying there's nothing to substantiate the pilot's story, nothing to indicate a UFO or any other aircraft near the flight. Computer memory has recreated what radar picked up as the flight progressed. Sometimes the JAL plane is seen as a normal blip, but occasionally it appears as what some call a double blip, sometimes even 2 distinct blips. It caught controllers' attention that night.
Military radar advises they do have a primary target in trail of view at this time.
But the FAA says exhaustive analysis indicates the occasional second blip was a common radar echo. And noting that this is only one of 4 times Captain Terauchi has said he's seen UFOs, the FAA today closed the case. But a tape recording reveals one investigator telling Terauchi if he's right and the agency's wrong.
All I can say is let's hope they're on our side, huh?
One impressive, well-documented case is reconstructed here by Nippon TV when a 707 was flying over Alaska on the 17th of November, 1986. At 5 p.m., during the flight, Commander Terauchi observed 2 red lights getting nearer. The control tower Anchorage didn't detect anything present in the area. The lights got nearer and nearer. The 3 pilots felt a wave of heat. Then the lights disappeared. Shortly after, 2 white lights appeared. The radar screen indicated the proximity of the object, and the object began to shadow the aeroplane in the direction of Fairbanks, Alaska. Thanks to the contrast of the city lights, the crew could see the outline of the object. We couldn't believe our eyes. It was 30 to 40 times bigger than a Boeing 707. We tried to shake off this object, and I veered the 707 away. The control tower asked if we required the intervention of a military fighter. We replied that it would be too dangerous, as an El Al aeroplane needed to cross our flight path. Towards 6 p.m., the object disappeared. The sighting lasted for an hour. These are the sketches by Captain Terauchi. Both he and his crew saw an enormous UFO. It was under control, and he felt there was every possibility that it hadn't been constructed on Earth.
My name is John Callahan. I'm a retired FAA employee. I was the division manager for the Accidents Evaluation and Investigation Division in D.C. About 2 years before I retired, I received a call from Alaska region where the region wanted to know what to tell the media. When I questioned, tell the media what, he says about the UFO, and it went downhill from there. What UFO? It turned out I told him what any government employee would do at that time was to tell him it's under investigation. And then I had him send all that data to the FAA's tech center in Atlantic City. The next day, my immediate boss, service director, Javi Safir, and I went to Atlantic City. I had just purchased a new video camera, and I videoed the event. And in Atlantic City, we had them play back on a scope, you would call it a scope, a plan view display, PVD, exactly what the pilot seen or what the controller seen, and we tied that in with the voice tape so we could hear exactly what the controller said and what he heard, and we taped it. We came back the next day, briefed the administrator, Admiral Ingen, on what happened. He wanted a 5-minute briefing. After we started the briefing, he wanted to know if he could see the video. We put the video on. He watched the video, the whole video. The next day, he set up a meeting for me to give a dog and pony show to President Reagan's scientific staff and whoever they brought over, and to hand off all that data to them. That morning in the FAA round room, it was either 9 or 10 o'clock, 3 men from Reagan's scientific staff, 3 CIA people, 3 FBI people, and I don't remember who the other guys were, along with all the FAA experts that I brought with me. They could decide or talk about the hardware and the software, how it worked. We put on a dog and pony show. We let them watch the video. We had all the data there. We had all the printouts that the computer put out. They got all excited over it. When it was all done, the CIA, one of the CIA men told the people they were now sworn to secrecy, that this meeting never happened and this event never happened. When I asked him why, I thought it was probably just a stealth bomber at the time, he says, well, this is the first time that we have recorded radar data on a UFO, and these guys are going to get all excited, drooling over all this data. I said, well, you're going to tell the public about it? And he says, no, we don't tell the public about this. It would panic the public. He says, we're going to go back and study this. I said, okay. It was what he was going to do. Now, I've told this story many times, and I get sometimes funny looks from people. I have with me the voice tapes of the controllers that were involved, the FAA original tapes. See, after we handed this stuff off to the president's staff, the FAA didn't know what to do with it. We don't separate UFOs from real traffic, so it's not our problem. Okay? I have a copy of the original of the video that we took, which is rather interesting. And once the thing was all over, the reports started coming into my office, but because it wasn't an FAA air traffic problem, the FAA's report ended up on a table in my office. And it stayed there until I retired, when one of the staffers packed up all my gear and helped it move to my house. Also, in a box I found just a few days ago, in my 1992 tax return, I have the target printouts from the computer data, which, so if you wanted to return or look at every target that was up there at the time, you can now reproduce this from this piece of paper here. And it's called the UFO incident, Japan 1648, I believe the number was, that happened on November the 18th, 1986. I'm prepared to go to Congress to swear before Congress that everything I've told you people and everything that is here is the truth. Thank you.
Having public participation in the UFO program caused an awful lot of headaches for the United States Air Force. Their regulations indicated that they couldn't tell the public that there were unknowns, that they were only to tell the public the ones that they had identified. And because of this, they had to give all types of explanations for UFOs, and it caused the Air Force to have a very bad name. Not only that, the information concerning UFOs was highly classified, and having the public participation in the UFO program wasn't to the best of the Air Force interests. So in December of 1969, December 17th, 1969, the United States Air Force again told the public that it had terminated its UFO program, and now covertly investigates the better civilian sightings and concentrates mostly on government source control cases and airline pilot cases under the order JANP 146, a Joint Army Air Force Navy order, which outlines what military civilian pilots are supposed to do when they see a UFO sighting. They submit what they call a service report, which contains information vital to the security of the United States. Once they make an official report, they're subjected to $10,000 fine and or 10 years in jail if they reveal the contents of this report. Also in 1973, after the last huge UFO wave, worldwide UFO wave, UFOs mysteriously disappeared from the national newspapers. The only way usually you're going to find out about UFO sightings, other than belonging to an organization who's investigating UFOs, would be to subscribe to a local news clip service. And you would see that UFO sightings are still happening in this country and abroad, all over the place, but they aren't getting reported in the national press, which is very unusual.
And there was one recently in Alaska.
Very unusual that that particular account in Alaska should get in the press. It was a month afterwards. It was kept out of the press for a month, and this involved a huge UFO seen by a Japanese airlines crew flying a cargo plane, a Boeing 747, into Anchorage, Alaska. And they were followed for hundreds of miles by this huge UFO, which was described as a bowl inverted upon a bowl with a rim around it. We call it the Saturn-type configuration. The pilot and the crew members described it as being as large as 2 aircraft carriers placed side by side. They tracked it on their weather radar to make sure that they weren't seeing things. They were in contact with the FAA at Anchorage and also Elmendorf Air Force Base. And they have said, and they've maintained their story, that both locations also tracked it on radar. It wasn't mentioned in the press. It was kept very quiet. It broke in Japan around December 30th, December 31st, and got back into the press in this country after a month. And immediately the FAA officials contradicted their own controllers. The Air Force spokesman also contradicted their own radar operators and told the press that, the FAA told the press that the radar was just a double image of the plane. Elmendorf Air Force Base officially said that they were just picking up ground clutter. The 2 smaller objects, which were seen with the big objects, were described as being Mars and Jupiter, although they didn't look like Mars and Jupiter at all. And the last I heard was that the FAA controllers were very upset about this, and the Japanese pilot and the crew members are still sticking to their story, regardless of what our government says.